Hello, fellow alchemists. Welcome back to our series. And as you guys can see, I had a little bit of an accent over the weekend, so maybe that's why things have been a little bit delayed over here. Not the also we've been quite busy with work, but I just want to kind of let you guys know that I am recovering right now. I damaged about 3 fingers in my right hand, which is my good hand. So for me, typing is a little bit difficult at this time. But what I went ahead and did was I set up everything I wanted to show you guys. What's really, really cool that's happening right now in Phoenix is that more and more people are using Tailwind. And Tailwind came out with a really, really cool thing where you can just use Tailwind, like this Tailwind binary directly. And you don't need to use NPM, right? So it seems like everybody's trying to get rid of NPM or they're trying to get rid of Webpack, right? Because it's just, you guys know, right? If you've been using Phoenix for a while, if you've been using any kind of front-end framework, Webpack is just not fun. You're just stuck using it. But thanks to tools like ESBuild and now Tailwind, you can kind of not have to use it. So if you're only going to be using Tailwind, or if you're going to be using Tailwind plus some JavaScript, this is what you guys need to do in order to put Tailwind into your apps using the binary. It's really, really straightforward. So like I said, this video, because of my hand, we're going to have to do things a little bit differently where I've actually done all the work already and I'm going to try to walk you through it. I apologize. I still want to teach you guys new things, but this format is only temporary. You guys can let me know if it's really a big problem, but I still want to teach you guys things. So I'm still kind of going through all this stuff. And without any further ado, let's get started. So of course, you need to actually add Tailwind to your project. And I just did Tailwind 0.1. And make sure that the runtime is only for the dev environment because you don't need to be running Tailwind during your production environment, which is fine. They also said that you can just have dev only if you pre-compile your assets before you actually deploy. But I just did it this way because when I build my containers, usually I use a dev mode. So usually I set the mix environment to be prod in my container. So that's why I did it this way. And one more thing you need to also change too, which is that, by default, when you have a new project, it's going to be ESBuild default minify. You just have to add this Tailwind default minify right after that. Now, what does this default mean? So default is actually a different kind of profile that you have. And so we just have the default profile when we're doing this kind of stuff. And just make sure we have minify. So you want to minify your CSS for yourself. The next thing you have to do is you have to go to config, and you actually have to configure which version of Tailwind that you want to actually run. And so I just chose 3.0.11, which was the latest at the time when I created this. And here's my default profile over here. And this one just specifies the arguments. So we need to make sure that we're using the config at tailwind.config.js. We're going to be inputting whatever CSS we have inside our app.css. And we're going to be outputting this stuff to our static folder. Pretty straightforward, I think. And then finally, of course, we need to actually have the CD. So which directory should we run this from? And of course, because we're in the config folder, then we just need to kind of back up. So from the current folder we're in right now, go into assets folder and run it from there. And from here, now you just need to run a mix command called mix tailwind install, which will grab the Tailwind binary for you and for your platform and set it up already for you inside of the build folder. So in my build folder, you'll see over here, we already have Tailwind macOS 8 x64 because I'm running Intel-based system and I'm on macOS. That's why I have this one. And here's the ESBuild for macOS 2. And then one last thing is when you're running in dev mode, you want to also run the watcher, right? So when you're editing your pages or when you're editing your CSS, you want to be able to recompile. And so you just need to add a watcher for Tailwind. So just Tailwind is the one you're going to be watching. From the Tailwind module, you want to run the install and run and tell it to use the default profile and then just add the command of actually watching, right? Now you may be wondering, like, how does this watching work? Well, after you go ahead and install Tailwind using the mix command of mix tailwind install, you should also run mix tailwind default, which will run through your system and create the config file for you. And so if you look inside of assets, we have this tailwind config.js. And everything's going to be set for you over here where it says, okay, look at the JS files over here and look at the web files and look at more like template files over here. And this is what's going to be watching and also kind of looking at because it can also do stripping out of tags and also creating kind of new ones for you out of the box. And finally, you need to actually require, this is what actually gives you out of the box is requiring the Tailwind forms. But of course you can edit this one wherever you like, but mix Tailwind default will give you this default configuration file for you. And then finally, if you're going to be using ESBuild with this, what you need to remember to do is actually remove this import CSS, because now our CSS is going to be managed by Tailwind. And if you don't, then it's going to error out because it doesn't know where the Tailwind forms is, because you didn't use npm to install that. And then after that, then you can do anything you want, right? So over here, I went ahead and did this W100px. And this actually ran through, so the Tailwind binary actually ran through my template files, found this one, actually created the CSS for that. And so yeah, you can just use Tailwind out of the box, and you can dynamically create attributes for whatever you want. And it just works, right? So you guys can go ahead and give this a try on your own. And yeah, that's it for this video. Let me know how you like this style. I'm sure it's not going to be as good as before. But like I said, I still want to teach you guys things in the meantime. This is Alan from Plangora. Please subscribe if you haven't. Otherwise, I'll catch you guys next time. Thanks. Bye. Plangora.